Hey there, friends, and a beautiful day to you. Today's Glitch in the Matrix video is slightly different from my normal content, in that this glitch video will be a little more themed. What does that mean? That means these stories are all about a specific thing or event or situation that occurred to these people. And this one in particular is basically personal Mandela effects. Now, what is a Mandela effect? For those who don't know, Mandela effect is, for the most part, a collective, I don't want to say false memory, but that's kind of the best way to state it. Basically, it's a collective of people or a group or whatever that remember something that is not as it is. A good example of this, and is actually part of the story, or part of one of the stories, is the cornucopia on the Fruit of the Looms logo. The Berenstain Bears being the Berenstein Bears, or whichever way that goes. The whole, no, I am your father, and Luke, I am your father, from Star Wars. I'm actually reading those from this Fruit of the Looms story. Those are ones he listed, or they listed. Basically, things like that. The Monopoly Man having a monocle is another one, where a lot of people remember it, but if you go look at the Monopoly box, he doesn't have one. So, that's what those are. Now, personal Mandela effects are a bit strange, in that, how does one have a personal Mandela effect if a Mandela effect is a large group of people who remember the wrong thing? Well, that's kind of basically what it is, right? It's to some extent a false memory. It is a memory of something that is not a thing that exists in this reality. Not false as in you're remembering something wrong, false as in it is not currently correct. That is the best way to explain a personal Mandela effect. This video is going to be full of personal Mandela effects. I know this intro has gone on too long, I do apologize, but I wanted to explain it for those who aren't aware. So, I hope you all do enjoy these stories. 3 of them are connected. They're all the same person explaining things from step 1 to step 3, kind of. So, hopefully you guys do enjoy it. I may do more like this in the future. I don't know. I just wanted to get this one out of the way because someone did request personal Mandela effects as well. So, thank you to everyone who listened to this point. Thank you to everyone who gets through the video. And, of course, I love you. And I hope you have a beautiful day. And enjoy. Okay, so I've been having a lot of issues lately with things. About 4 months ago, I had a near-death experience. I had a cardiac issue where my heart pretty much just stopped doing what it was supposed to do, and I collapsed in the middle of the grocery store. It was a seemingly random attack. It was completely unexpected, and I've always been told that I was healthy, so really there was no way anyone would have ever expected me to have this issue. But I did. I was walking with my wife around the store. We were talking about what to have for dinner, and, in her words, I went pale, smiled, and literally fell face first into the pineapples. I was lucky that there actually happened to be a couple of paramedics at the store when this happened. Like, beyond lucky. As I had literal minutes before I wouldn't have been able to have been revived. They were able to get me back quickly, and we all took an impromptu ride in an ambulance to the ER, where the doctors worked some amazing miracles on me to keep me alive. I was in the hospital for a while. They kept me to make sure that it wasn't likely to happen again, and we went through all the consultations and tests to see why it happened at all. Without getting too far into it, I was basically told that I had a 90% chance of it never happening again, but that other 10% was a big deal to them. And I now have medications, and have to frequently check in with the cardiologist to make sure that I don't circle the drain anytime soon. Ever since I was released from the hospital, though, I've noticed things that are not the same for me. I've noticed that there are things that have been changed slightly, and it's actually been weighing pretty heavy on my mind. I don't know if this is personal Mandela Effect things, or glitches, or just some sort of reality or timeline shift, but here we go. The first thing that I noticed was the insurance company that my wife and I go through. The name of the company that we use is Farmers Insurance. However, that is not what I remember it being. I very distinctly remember the company being called the Farmers Insurance Company. My wife says that the company has always just been Farmers Insurance and has never had the or company in the name. But I know this is false, at least for me. I've even seen the commercials in this reality where they have the jingle, and it's almost the same as the one I remember. In this reality, however, it's just, "We are farmers." But I remember the jingle saying, "We are the farmers," which, to me, makes more sense. If you say the sentence out loud, it makes more sense to say that you are the farmer and not just, "You are farmer." But that's just my opinion. Anyways, I remember the company being the Farmers Insurance Company, and no one else does. The second thing that I remember is actually a bit more personal, and not on a corporate level, and that is a local coffee shop that my wife and I like to go to. There's this little cafe that is the cutest little place, and it's owned by a local family. We used to go there every weekend before the accident. I very specifically remember that the name of the cafe was the Cardinal Coffee House. And I remember that their specialty, the Cardinal, was basically a mocha with a ghost pepper syrup in it to make it spicy. I remember talking to the owner about it and asking why the store's namesake drink was that. And she said that it was because people associate heat with red, and cardinals were red. She then also said that cardinals were, quote-unquote, spicy little birds. Basically, that they were kind of mean when it came to their territory, so it just made sense to make their drink a little spicy too. I loved her explanation, and I loved the drink. The ghost pepper worked so well with the chocolate. Now, none of this is apparently true. The cafe is called the Bluebird, and their specialty namesake drink is incredibly boring. It's basically a vanilla latte with honey in it, and it's terrible. I actually talked to the owner about it, and I asked her if they still had the ghost pepper syrup for the coffee, and she seemed genuinely confused on what I was talking about. I'm actually incredibly sad, because it was such a fun combo and I really liked it. But it never existed, according to everyone else. The last thing that I think is worth mentioning actually happened at work. I work in IT, and we have a fairly tight-knit team. So I know all the guys that work on my team pretty well. Obviously, I was out for a while with my medical stuff, and I'm super thankful that they were willing to let me start back up when I was feeling better, and that the company had decided to allow us to stay remote for the foreseeable future, which made working that much easier for me. However, when I finally got back into working, I noticed that one of the guys on our team was seemingly absent from the meetings. He was one of the network guys named Chuck. He was seemingly no longer part of the company. Now, these things do happen all the time, and since I was gone for quite a while, I assumed he had found other work and moved on. It wasn't likely that he got fired, as he was good at his job, and he was in good standing with the company. Then, about 3 weeks into me being back, we have a Zoom call meeting where they all requested that we put our cameras on. The meeting starts, and the head of the IT department says that he wants to introduce a new member of our team, a guy named Chuck, that is going to be part of our networking team. I was completely confused. The guy on camera was the guy that I remembered working there. At first I thought that maybe he had left and come back, and that they were just being cheeky. But everyone was being genuine. This was Chuck's first day, and nobody knew him. I even asked my direct manager after that meeting if that was the same Chuck that worked for us prior, and he said that no one named Chuck had worked in IT before. I just said that I must have confused him with someone else, and I let it go, but I know this guy, and I know that he worked for the company before, at least in another timeline. These are just some of the things that I've noticed that have happened, and honestly, I'm pretty messed up with all this. It's incredibly stressful remembering things that seemingly never happened or existed, and I'm struggling to cope with it. Unfortunately, I think I'm just going to have to accept things for what they are now, because I don't think that there's any way for me to ever go back. I guess I'm late to the party on this one. I'd like to share my side of things on the Fruit of the Loom story. Personally, outside of curiosities like the Berenstain Bears, I've personally thought most of this was hogwash. As a huge Star Wars fan, I remember clearly it being, "No, I am your father," with "Luke, I am your father" basically just used as a marketing phrase. I remember C-3PO's leg being silver. I remember most of these things correctly. I do remember it being Berenstain Bears, but it wasn't a big enough part of my life to make me start becoming paranoid or anything. When I was a kid, my family lived in Alvaton, Kentucky. My dad worked at Fruit of the Loom. It felt like everything revolved around this company when I was young. My dad worked as an applications manager. He'd bring home the IBM ThinkPads, Palm Pilots, all sorts of cool technology that seemed light years ahead of the time to my elementary through middle school-aged kid mind. We had tons of company family functions. He would bring home clothing. Needless to say, the Fruit of the Loom's logo was a huge part of my mind. I remember thinking the cornucopia was a loom, and distinctly remember my dad correcting me on that while laughing and teaching me what it actually was. I also remember doodling the logo while I was in class, and making the cornucopia as a bunch of spirals. I just found out about this Mandela Effect this morning, and I texted my dad, who has now long moved on from the company. I texted him the logo with the cornucopia in it, and said, "You worked there. Do you not remember this as their logo?" The response I got was, "I did and do remember it." I then called him and he asked why we were talking about something like this. I told him how I was watching the X Games this weekend, which was sponsored by them, and noticing the logo had it removed. After going onto the internet and realizing it apparently never had the cornucopia in it at all. He got very defensive immediately, as if someone was calling him a liar, and said, "What do you mean it wasn't in the logo? I have things in storage with that logo stitched on it. I know I saw that thing every day for years." I explained to him what the Mandela Effect was, which I don't think he quite understands, but the logo thing got him very worked up. He's apparently still friends with a couple of former workers on Facebook. He's going to reach out to them today to see if they remember the same thing. To be quite honest with you, this is one of those freak-out moments for my life. I can legitimately say without a doubt that this logo used to be different. It's bothering me probably more than I'd ever thought something like this would. It's like being told your parents' name suddenly is something different. I have no reason to remember this cornucopia being there. I didn't even know what the damned thing was until my father corrected me. Those are burned in childhood memories that I know existed. Not just, I folded the laundry so I know. I remember large models of the logo at family events. I remember sitting in the damned cornucopia that they had. God, the more I think about it, the more it feels like a huge prank. I'll post with updates, if any, but thanks for hearing out my first post here. The OP then added an update to their post in the comments, and I will include that here. I'll quickly go over my call with him last night. His coworkers still have yet to get back to him, the one that he's talked to in the past and usually gets back to him within a few days. I asked what years he was there. He said he was there from 1990 to 1998. His friends on Facebook included 2 bosses and 2 coworkers. He's not been able to find any personal items yet from the time period with any logo on them, and we talked about this at length. Before the internet was widely used, there was no outside connectivity, at least with Fruit of the Loom during this period of time. Thus, the use of letterhead on project forms, memos, etc. was not a common practice like it is today. He did find a couple of memos that he kept, again, not emails, and there wasn't a letterhead on it for him to reference. I guess there was a person there that every time he would push out an update, the whole system would go down. So, they made a joke memo for him to use that basically said, "I'm about to run program whatever, so get ready for it," or something to that effect. He's found some items from the time period, but again, none with any logos on them. He did express that the company went through several hands, both while he was there and afterwards. He distinctly remembers that while he was there, he remembers at least once the cornucopia going away for a period of time. Apparently, this was a very stressful time to work there. Clothing in general was just starting to be outsourced to India at the time, and there was a large amount of pressure from Hanes. There were many times, especially during the course of these buyout transitions, where everyone thought they were going to lose their jobs. He described the office as very barren in terms of branding. There was a logo outside that was small and one inside, but the offices were generally devoid of any branding. Branding largely was seen on the product itself or during the family events, which, to be fair, was everywhere. Again, the logo wasn't pushed out there on everything to the same respect that it is today, and he made it very clear that Fruit of the Loom today is a very different company now than when he was there. He's still very adamant about the cornucopia, and has distinct memories of it. He also described several other in-house brands that he was in charge of. One was a brand specifically to be sent to screen printers who made their own custom shirts. I guess, at least back then, they never would dare ship out Fruit of the Loom branded shirts to these people, as they thought back then that it would cheapen the image of their brand. They didn't make it very public at all that they owned these other sister brands. He did have photos from family events, but all of our family photos went to my mother in their divorce. I haven't talked to her for nearly 10 years now, and neither has he, outside of court appearances. So that's basically a lost avenue. My call with him was earlier than anticipated. Questions only started to roll in that I requested after the call was already completed, so I do apologize for that. When he said he would call me at 9 p.m., I honestly forgot about the 3-hour time difference and was taken off guard when he called at 6. One last point that I would like to make. He is now 60, so this all happened in his 40s, i.e. this was well into his career, and wasn't something that happened to him when he was young. He made it a point to note that he was old enough to respect and take note of aspects of the company, such as his branding, and he wouldn't have taken it so casually. He was fairly high up in the company, and did not take it lightly, although he made it a point that Fruit of the Loom was the largest employer of the neighboring towns, Alvaton and Bowling Green. Basically, everyone knew the brand there. It was like Corvettes to some people in Kentucky. It was everywhere and everything, as it was the main provider of income to the district. While branding internally wasn't like it would be today, people in general in the vicinity were very much aware of the brand, both in name and logo, and would be easily remembered by workers, their families, and anyone else not associated with them, but living in the neighboring towns. I feel like this is a very important point to bring up. Edit. I forgot to mention that he stated that nobody called it a cornucopia in the office. It was generally referred to by workers as the basket. Thank you to the poster below for inadvertently reminding me of that part of the call. Some may know me based on my post in the Mandela Effect thread. My father worked at the Fruit of the Loom's headquarters in Kentucky. It's since moved. And we both have extremely specific memories and life events regarding the cornucopia. I've had a small handful of other experiences in my life that are perplexing, but nothing in regards to glitches per se. Except for this. It honestly bothers me. Although it's not scary, just confusing, if that makes sense. I'm not sure why, but it's been on my mind as of late, so I figured I would get this out of my system and post it here. And this is a few years ago. So, my wife is Canadian-born, and she still had family up there. Her father had passed several years prior from pancreatic cancer that wasn't diagnosed in time. And her mother was now very ill from complications due to Parkinson's disease. It was a long time coming, her health having sharply deteriorated after my father-in-law's passing. She was in assisted care living, could no longer speak, and we all knew she would be passing extremely soon. My wife went up to say her goodbyes, and she happened to pass away while she was up there. She stayed some time afterwards to take care of her affairs and attend her funeral. I was working at an extremely bad company at the time, with an owner who was egotistical and liked to threaten people quite a bit. And I was basically told that if I took off time to go to the funeral, I wouldn't have a job to come back to when I returned. So, I stayed here in the States, missing my mother-in-law's funeral. It pissed me off, but there wasn't anything I could do at the time. After it was all complete, I went to pick up my wife at the airport. I saw her along the curbside in front of her airline's area and pulled over. There were traffic cops up ahead that will bark at you if you put your vehicle into park, so I was in a hurry to get her luggage and get back into the truck. I had a 2017 Toyota Tacoma at the time. It was the SR5 package with the chrome rear bumper corners on the rear. I picked up her suitcase and flung it into the bed of the truck, kissed her, asked her how she was doing, and I opened her door. As she started to get in, I ran around the truck to the driver's side and got in. In this short amount of time, someone had pulled in right in front of me and was taking their sweet time, so I decided to back up to give myself enough room to pull around them into the middle lane. I looked in my backup cam, didn't see anyone, and proceeded to go into reverse. Suddenly, the truck stopped abruptly. I had hit someone that was out of sight of the camera in the corner of my bumper. I was in such a rush to get out of there that I didn't use my mirrors, which was dumb, I know. My wife asked if we hit someone, and I said that I had, and told her to wait there. I got out, and there was a red/maroon Hyundai behind me, with the pushed-in grille and front part of the hood. A Mexican woman and her mother came out of the car, screaming at me. I apologized over and over, and they eventually calmed down and realized it was just an honest mistake. I took ownership of the fault from the beginning to end, and they seemed content that I wasn't trying to skirt responsibilities. I looked at my Tacoma, and the chrome part of the bumper, there's chrome only on each far corner, was scraped up badly, and slightly dented upwards. Though I was honestly pretty happy to see how little damage there was after looking at how badly the Hyundai was banged up. They explained that their car was a rental, and they seemed very stressed about having damaged it. They didn't get the insurance from the rental place, and were adamant that I filled out the paperwork in the glove box that's provided in case of an accident, which I promptly filled out without any hesitation. I showed them my insurance, which they took a picture of with their phone, and filled that info out as well on the paperwork along with everything else. We wrapped things up, came back into the truck, and I apologized to my wife, who said something to the effect of, stuff happens, it's alright, and we went home. The next day, I went out to look at my truck, thinking I would have to eBay the chrome piece to replace it. It's a cheap part, and I would rather have that than to deal with my insurance replacing the part on top of having to pay for the rental's damage. I was shocked to see that there wasn't any damage on the chrome. In fact, I thought I was mistaken on the side that I hit, since there was absolutely no damage. I checked the other chrome bumper piece, but nothing. Here's the part that messes with me. I never was contacted by my insurance or any other party or company about that crash. My wife remembers it. I remember it. But there was never any damage on that truck after the initial day, and the people who didn't have rental insurance, who would have most certainly reported me due to how badly the Hyundai's damage was, never reported me. Keep in mind, I was super stressed out for weeks, so it's not like we imagined this or something, because I knew that I'd have to be dealing with my insurance company and paying of deductibles, etc. Money was tight at the time as well, and I was extremely stressed about having to pay $500 for the deductible. I kept waiting for a call, something in the mail, nothing. I suppose this could be explained away as they were trying to be nice or something, and just used their own insurance. I mean, who would take out their own deductible for someone else that they don't even know? But even past that, it doesn't explain why my truck was no longer scraped up and dented. Has anyone else had an experience like this? This Reddit sub was the only place I figured it was relevant. Thanks. I guess I have a strange glitch or personal Mandela Effect situation that I haven't been able to figure out, and probably never will. My apologies if this is somewhat boring or too short. It's not really a long story, nor is it super crazy. It's just really weird to me, and I can't find an explanation for the whole thing. For a little context, I'm not huge into the paranormal, nor do I believe we live in a simulation, and I'm not under the influence of anything, etc. and so on. But this is something that has bothered me ever since it happened. My cousin, I'll call him Danny, was my best friend growing up. I lived in a neighborhood that had next to 0 kids, so he and I would always be spending time together. My favorite childhood memories are from when he and I would play Pokemon Red and Blue on our old school Game Boys, because we would just sit there for hours playing through the game, trading the Pokemon, and battling each other to see who had the stronger monsters. In fact, it's because of him that I got my then favorite Pokemon, Alakazam. It's not really relevant, but to get Alakazam, you have to trade your Kadabra with another person, and then it evolves. There are a few Pokemon from back then that did this, and I remember that we pretty much finished the Pokedex in both games because of how much we played together. It may not seem like it's important, but I remember getting to the 150 mark on the game, which is not something you could do without 2 people, or at least 2 games and 2 Game Boys. When I was 12, Danny's parents, so my aunt and my uncle, decided to move to another part of the state. It was pretty far away, so We never really got to see each other after this, as my parents never wanted to go that way, and I couldn't drive. I moved on though, and I grew up with pretty much no other friends. I'm not trying to garner pity, I'm just saying. Then, when I was around 17, my aunt and uncle wanted to have a good-sized party for Danny's 18th birthday and graduation. It was seemingly a really big deal for them, so they invited everyone over and wanted the entire family to come and celebrate. I was stoked. I hadn't seen him for 5 years, and I had planned on giving him a short speech during the party about how much spending time with him as a child meant for me. I was going to make a joke about how we spent hours playing Pokemon, and I wanted to get him an Alakazam card as a joke, only to find out that they don't print Alakazam cards. Look it up, it's pretty stupid. So I just planned on giving him my little speech, and that was that. When I got there, I was actually thankful that I didn't get an Alakazam card for him, because apparently none of my childhood memories playing Pokemon with Danny ever happened. That's right, nothing I just said is a thing that happened in my current existence. My cousin Danny, the one that I spent hours playing Pokemon with, the one that traded me the Alakazam that I cherished and beat his Pokemon with 100 times, he was apparently born blind. He has apparently never been able to see anything. Ever. And the reason that this was a big celebration wasn't just because he was graduating, but because of how much he struggled with trying to get through high school with his disability, and how proud everyone was of him for making it. Obviously, I'm pretty damn proud of him too, but I don't get how this is possible. For the record, this is the same Danny as the one that I grew up with. Same red, seemingly wind-swept hair, same bright green eyes, and same goofy attitude. Except this Danny can't see, and has never been able to. Being unable to see means that there's no way he could have ever played the old school Pokemon games with me, and my entire childhood is one big false memory. I'm not going to lie, it actually hurts the hell out of me to know this, and there's really nothing that I can do about it. There were no other cousins that lived near me, there were no other kids that it could have been, and obviously I didn't just imagine it all or dream that it all happened. I am devastated that my best friend as a kid just didn't seem to exist in this reality. It's been years since all of this happened, we're both in our 30s now, but I still think about all this quite often. And I honestly miss the Danny that I knew and grew up with in the other timeline. Okay, so about 3 weeks ago, I started texting this guy. We hit it off and have a lot in common. Anyways, we started talking about sleep patterns and whatnot. I told him that I sleep a lot, especially when I get off work. As soon as I get home, I take a shower, and I go to sleep. He says that he's the opposite. He has trouble falling asleep to the point where he has to fall asleep with rain videos and stuff like that. So, I decided to tell him about Dr. Teal's sleeping spray, the one that's been all over TikTok. I've never used it, but I heard that it actually works. I decided to send him a picture of it. I go online to take a screenshot of the spray, and I even sent him the lotion that also helps to sleep. After I sent it to him, I showed my sister our text, and we talked about it for a while. We were joking, saying that we should get it just to see if it actually works, and I show her the pictures that I sent to him. Anyways, and my point is that I texted him and sent him a picture of the spray. He even joked around about it, saying, imagine I spray too much and end up in a coma or something. And I was like, please don't. So, fast forward to today, we start having this same conversation about sleep, our sleeping patterns and whatnot. I'm thinking, didn't we go through this already? Because he was like, "Oh, I can't sleep, I have trouble sleeping." Something along those lines. I texted him back saying, "I'm telling you, you need to try out that sleeping spray." And then he was like, "What's that?" I assumed that maybe he forgot. So I sent him a text saying, "The Dr. Teal's sleeping spray, the blue bottle." And he's like, "I don't know what that is." At this point, I'm so confused because I'm certain that we had this conversation before. I'm positive I sent him the screenshots of it. So I go back to our messages trying to find it. Nothing. I never delete my texts. I still have messages that go back to last year. So I was confused. I went back to my screenshots on the phone to see the pictures from that day that I had taken or screenshotted. There's nothing. I couldn't find it. I spent 34 minutes going through all of my pictures and messages, and I could not find anything regarding the stupid spray. So I go find my sister, and I told my sister about it and asked her if she remembered when I mentioned the sleeping spray to the guy. We joked about actually getting it, and she says yes, why? I go on to explain everything to her, and she's freaked out. So am I. Because what the hell? I know that I didn't text it to some other guy because he was the only guy that I was talking to at that time. So I go through all my messages again, hoping that I sent it to someone else, and there's nothing. I can't find anything. Just nothing at all. As if I never had that conversation with him. I don't know what it means, but it's just insane. Because if it wasn't for my sister remembering the whole ordeal, I would have probably thought that I'm imagining things, or hallucinating. So I'm not sure how to make sense of this mess, and no, I don't do drugs nor drink. So I don't know what reasonable explanations I can come up with. Has anything like this ever happened to anyone else? Alright, friends, so this was a collection of stories that are basically personal Mandela effects. Now, some may say that a personal Mandela effect is impossible, and I understand why you would say that. But I think all of these stories kind of assist in showing that it is possible for someone to have a Mandela effect that is personal. Obviously, Mandela effects are more widespread, but all of these people have these false memories, these memories that just never seemed to happen in their current existence. And I think that's kind of terrifying. But hopefully you all enjoyed them. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're new and like what you heard. And then support by hitting join down below, or the thanks button, or going to Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month you can get early access to content like this. Now, the other thing we do around these parts, partner, is the word of the week. Last week, several of you submitted sentences via the comment section down below. All of those are on the screen now and have been for a few moments. And I want to say thank you to each and every single one of you. You all are amazing and are literally the reason I keep doing this. Now, moving on to this week's word of the week. This week, the word is original. ORIGINAL, which is of, relating to, or constituting an origin or beginning, not secondary, derivative, or imitative, or independent and creative in thought or action. I suppose my sample sentence would be something relating to the one story with the cousin, where they said they played the original Pokemon games on the original Game Boy. I, too, had the original Pokemon games, played with my friend Josh all the time. However, I had a Game Boy Pocket. A little blue Game Boy Pocket that I cherished and loved. And still have. I actually still have my copy of Pokemon Red somewhere, too. And my Game Boy Color. All of it's upstairs. I have a good portion of my childhood still, which is actually kind of nice. Yeah. Anyways, friends, I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I hope you have a great week, and I will see you on the next video. But, of course, until that happens, sleep well.